Ever since I first stumbled across the BBC Three YouTube channel, I've made it a point to keep tabs on them. Over the last 5 months of knowing they even existed, I have made 4 videos responding to them. They have made many more in the subject of things not to say to, and then the name of the group you shouldn't be saying things to. Today, and maybe tomorrow, we are going to be covering things not to say to those that voted Brexit, and things not to say to those that voted Remain. Is it too late to get a refund on that TV license?
You're just a racist.
This is one of those ones where it can be something you shouldn't say, but can also be something that actually doesn't matter if you say. In that, if someone has explained their reasons for voting Brexit and they are inherently racist, you can call them racist. However, if you have heard someone has voted Brexit and you just call them racist, while you are free to call them racist, all you do is prove you're assuming somebody is an ethno-nationalist, which would be nonsense considering our country is somewhat multicultural anyway.
That's the one that grates the most.
Yeah. It's like saying, are you a paedophile? It's
the most slanderous thing that anyone can say.
Obviously, like 17.4 million people are not racist.
But 17.4 million people are all unintelligent, because that one was thrown about, all old people, it's all their fault, and we need to lower the voting age because that would help. And what else can we blame things on for the result being the way it is, rather than addressing the genuine criticism that was raised during the campaign that led to Brexit winning?
Being concerned about immigration is not racist.
Racist.
A lot of people are actually pro-freedom of movement and see the EU as like a kind of a racist entity because it only lets white people have freedom of movement.
Do you think what you just said was smart? Or do you think it was a load of bollocks? Since Europe is predominantly white, your statement is utterly worthless. Unless you're now about to tell me that freedom of movement doesn't work because, well, black people or other races that are in Europe because they moved here don't have the free movement that they do in fact have.
And also, polls actually said, like consistently after the vote, that the main reason why most Leavers voted was because of democracy.
I love Poland. I love Polish people, actually. I used to work with a lot of them back when I was an engineer. A cell phone engineer, or mobile phone engineer, depending on what you prefer to call it. And quite a lot of those that I spoke to during that lead up to the election said they wanted the UK to leave because they were sick of all the people coming into the country, because it made it harder for them to have somewhere to live, forcing them to bunk up with other people rather than find a house because prices went up as well. We don't have the houses for everything.
What young person would vote for Brexit?
How on earth is that something you shouldn't say to someone that voted Brexit? It sounds like something someone would say when they are exasperated. But even then, it still isn't something you shouldn't say. This one's quite weak, BBC.
When I voted Brexit, I was just 21. This young person, I kind of bucked the trend a little bit.
I think I might have been the only Leave voter for Glastonbury last year.
Most Brexiteers are portrayed as like swivel-eyed, flag-waving loons.
I've met actually quite a few young people that voted Leave, although a lot of the time they do tell you in secret.
I had to boycott social media.
True story. I still use Facebook to keep tabs on family, and when the result came in, a lot of my friends and family went on the scaremongering. They were terrified of what's going to happen to the United Kingdom, what's going to happen to our economy and the jobs and the houses, and yeah, the salt from the salt mines was so much that I had to unfollow about 80% of all of those friends and family that I had on Facebook. It was insane. And I also did the same thing for those that got incredibly butthurt when Trump won the election, which to me is still the funniest thing that's happened.
I just get messages saying, oh, you're a disgusting Brexiteer.
I was a wanker, I was a racist.
They just dislike your politics, they literally dislike you as a person. They take it personally.
Yeah, it's quite surprising how emotionally involved people got, but at the same time it's not surprising because this one was such a big election, which explains the turnout, which was better than that of the previous general election.
I'd like to say, like, a young Leave voter is liberal and has a positive outlook and hopes for a better world.
God, you sound like alt-right fascist neo-Nazi scum. God, what's wrong with you?
Ooh, big one. Hate one.
I actually remember this one featuring quite heavily on social media. It wasn't so much being used to say to people who voted Brexit, more a statement of fact in their mind.
I think hope won.
Was the other side love then? I mean, because I didn't get that.
I didn't get the love either.
It's not hate. People who vote Brexit, we're not hateful people, we're not nasty people.
Just before somebody interjects here and says, oh really? People who voted Brexit aren't hateful, and then plays some clip or shows some social media to clarify. Not all people that voted Brexit are hateful people.
Sound like, oh, we hate Europeans. Anyone from Europe. No, we don't. We hate the structure and the construct of the European Union.
This, for a lot of people, was something heavily discussed during the campaign online. Myself included, I had quite a lengthy discussion with the Satirician, where we talked about this and why we both had decided to vote Brexit. Link to it in the description.
I don't particularly hate anybody. Well, maybe I hate Nick Clegg.
I can imagine quite a number of people that voted for the Liberal Democrats in the 2010 election despise Nick Clegg, especially those students that voted for him, quite a large percentage of his voter base, because they were led to believe that he would oppose tuition fees going up.
How about that £350 million then? The infamous 350 million.
The bus.
This particular pledge seemed unrealistic to me, and was not what swayed me to vote to leave. I do, however, believe that once we leave the EU and successfully negotiate trade deals outside of the EU, that we will be able to earn enough money to put something similar into the NHS. However, quite a lot of people would agree the NHS is a black hole. It's where money goes to die, so whether it's a good idea or not is an uncertainty. Brexit happened before Trump, so to me this one is a tad redundant to use now. Also, if anything, it just makes people who say it look extra salty on two fronts.
Oh, no, let's pick this one. Let's pick this one. I can see it now. You're just as bad as people who voted for Trump.
It's not a bad thing that we've done here, it's not a crime.
This is an interesting point. The election was entirely democratic, there were two options, and there was no crime committed voting for either, but some on one side would want to treat it as such and make you feel incredibly guilty for doing so, to make you feel like a criminal, like what you have done is stolen something from someone else, which is not what happened at all.
Biggest parallel between Brexit and Trump is that it highlighted how out of touch many politicians are.
Bingo. One of the good things, though, I noticed in Parliament was that quite a number of MPs agreed to honour what their constituents had voted for. Now, of course, if anyone's paying attention to Parliament and politics right now, the Labour Party is irritating beyond reckoning on the subject of Brexit, as are the SNP, that nationalist party we have in Parliament, which is about a united kingdom, but they're only interested in one part of it. This is something that has come up in Parliament repeatedly during PMQs, and I know for a fact that Theresa May has stated she will seek to make sure those that are already in Europe can stay in Europe. If anyone would like proof, I highly recommend trawling through UK Parliament's playlist on Prime Minister's questions for this year.
People who don't like the fact they're not going to get cheap flights anymore, we voted for democracy and to instill our democracy and to maintain our democracy, and I think that's worth a $59.99 flight in Ryanair.
Ryanair. Something of note. When people were being asked while they were protesting the result, they were asked to give 3 reasons why they love the EU. One person said the NHS, but the common feature to everyone's 3 choices was free movement. That was the only thing they were interested in, because they couldn't be bothered to buy a pen to fill in more paperwork, because that's effort, and we are now a generation of convenience.
I don't think it's going to make a massive difference, really, unless the European Union decides to be extra mean in the negotiation.
Which might be.
You guys should see the divorce bill argument going on right now. Now, something that kept coming up in PMQs was that the opposition and SNP wanted the Conservative Party to put all their cards on the table for parliamentary scrutiny. The problem with that is that would mean everyone has access, including the public, to the negotiation tactics. If that was made public, we would then be at the mercy of the EU, because they would know what we want and what we're going to do to try and get it. Labour, SNP, you are both terrible at negotiations, and Jeremy Corbyn, it is not a negotiation tactic to drop your trousers, turn around, bend over and spread.
It's the European Union. It's a man-made, bureaucratic, paper-pushing hellhole that I'm very proud that 17.4 million British people decided to stick their fingers up to it and walk away.
Yeah, for something that was originally meant to be a trade agreement, it has come quite far, and this whole unelected chambers really sealed it for me. And I know the counter-argument to a number of people is, yes, but your Queen is an unelected head. I have no answer for that. Again, this is something I don't care if someone says to someone that voted Brexit, and have yet to see any that so far should be something you shouldn't say to someone that voted Brexit. And, side note, it took me 2 weeks to come to the decision to vote to leave.
They're trying to frame it that, it was just loads of uneducated bigots versus the enlightened Remainers.
Who's your favourite MEP?
I have to say I'm not educated enough to say who my favourite MEP is, but then again, who really knows their MEP?
Totes. How on earth is this something you shouldn't say? BBC, you seem to have forgotten your own format. To answer your question though, yes. 100% yes. Thanks to leaving the EU, I no longer feel like my bottom is going to be ripe for someone else's picking, and that someone else will be somebody waving some poxy blue flag with some stars in a circle.